There you go. Welcome back. Hey, our next guest is a mother of three. She has three children, and she serves as an inspiration behind her beautiful stories, celebrating culture and language. So she'll share insights into her latest successful book and offer advice to aspiring authors. So please welcome to the show, Luz Mack. Luz, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure being here.
Now you're sitting right there. I think it seems like you're nearby.
Yes, I live by Crotona Park,
Uh huh.
and I've been living here for the last, I want to say, close to 18 years.
Uh huh. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. I started writing over 10 years ago when my daughter was 3 years old.
Hmm.
She was accepted into one of these beautiful private schools, and she started nursery at the young age of 3 years old. When I was picking her up from school one day, she asked me if I could dye her hair blonde. And of course, as a woman, we always want to look pretty and feel accepted. But at 3 years old, I thought being blonde was way too young, maybe a little later.
Uh huh.
So I started looking at what was happening in around us. Why did my daughter crave to look a certain way that it didn't reflect our family, it didn't reflect her, our community, our heritage? And that's when I started looking at the numbers of how we weren't representing children. Not in our educational systems, now outside our educational systems, like movies, media,
Hmm.
or books. So I started to create my own stories for the sake of my children to see themselves reflected on the pages of a book.
Yeah.
But most importantly, for them to see the beauty of their culture because their skin tone, their hair, the color of the eyes, this is not per chance. This is who
Yeah.
we are.
Hmm. Yeah. And you're from the Dominican Republic, right?
Yes, I was born in Villameja and I came
Uh,
to the United States when I was like around 6 years old.
yeah. So, how does your daughter view the world now? Now that
It's
you,
Yeah, it's interesting. My children are half Dominican and half African American, and just trying to look at both our cultures in a very loving and kind way and try to kind of lead with identity
Mhm.
so they could understand that they could be their genuine selves and represent themselves wherever they go. So I let them lead me and what they feel comfortable doing, like,
Yeah.
and how they feel comfortable identifying. And as long as I could provide as a mother, like the context of where things originated from in
Yeah.
our family, that I think that's the best I could do as a mom. But there's a lot of times I get it wrong.
Yeah. But within your storytelling, what age do you want to begin to tell students or your youngsters about diversity and inclusiveness and things of that nature?
I think books are honestly the perfect way to get children to see other worlds because honestly as they go up in grades and they start learning more about
Mhm.
literacy, culture, science, and even history, what I've noticed is that our history is always forgotten. Not only the African American story, the Latino story, the Asian story, the list goes on. We cannot see inclusion if we keep leaving our stories out of it. And I always welcome parents. If you want your children to know about who they are, start with your own family story. Start with like what made you the person you are. What made you like even something as simple as your favorite dish?
Yeah.
Where did this dish come from? Things happen for a reason, and the kids need to learn that. Just how when we go to college and we go to school, we learn about all these facts and how they shape our society. They need to know about the history of their richness
Yeah.
because if we don't do it, they're not, unfortunately, they have to wait in some instances to go to college to learn about Latino stories or Latino heritage or African American heritage. So those stories are left out.
Luz, tell us about the secret of the plátano.
Oh my God. So in the pandemic, I had a dream with my grandmother.
Uh huh.
And obviously, that was a very trying time in my life. My father had COVID. He's a Vietnam vet, and he was in the Veterans Hospital. I had COVID, and I was working at Weill Cornell at the time. And I just really felt at that time it was not only a time of like a lot of uncertainty, but like we were very scared. We didn't know what was going to happen. I remember before going to sleep, I was asking my husband, "What's gonna happen, like to us? Like, are we gonna survive this thing?" I mean, this when we were listening to the news, it was very scary, scary times. That night, I went to sleep and I dreamt I was in a field of plátanos, like a
Wow.
beautiful vegetation, and I dreamt of my grandmother who just asked me to follow her, and we spent the whole night dancing.
Oh,
And it was just like a calm, peaceful feeling to be with someone that's no longer here to bring peace and love in such a the only way they know how to do, someone
yeah.
that you love and know is no longer here on earth. So I woke up the next day just feeling assurance, and I wrote that moment in time in my life and created a children's book out of it.
Beautiful. And it was reaching number one. It reached number one on Amazon Children's Central and South America books, right?
It did, and it actually won an award uh recently last year. No, this year, 2023. How can I forget? It's
Yeah.
just because 2024 is around the
I
corner.
know. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So wait a minute. And then you have some dealings with Disney? Explain that.
So I was really hired to be part of the project of Encanto, the movie that came out.
Yeah.
Disney hired a team of writers, Latino authors, to write parts of the movie and adapt it to what we call like early set books. And these
Uh,
books were once they were out, they were available in levels 1, 2, 3. As you could tell, it was divided by literacy level
uh-huh.
and grade level. So I wrote a level 2 for children that happened to be like around like you know not in first grade but second grade, starting to read more on their own independently. So that was something very exciting. Not only did I get to see the script of Encanto before the movie was out, but I got to share that moment with my family once the
Yeah.
movie was out, like, hey, your mommy was there, like she was a part of this is like a big deal.
Yeah.
Although right now people think I'm very cool,
But
so
listen, you have some behind the scenes teachings, right? Tell us about that.
Yeah, right now, one of my biggest accolades, and I'm gonna shout him out. His name is Tony Plata.
Uh
I
huh.
think one of the Bronx principals was on BronxNet recently, was sharing his work. I was able to work with Tony. He self-published his own book. It's called Weekend with Papi. It's out now. Uh, but I was able to teach him some of my like inside hacks on how to create your own story, because I believe that although I'm very excited that I was able to use our stories for my family and made them into beautiful stories, I feel like that's not the goal. The goal is to teach more individuals that come from our communities to understand that there's power in
Yeah.
telling your story, economic opportunities also when they do say their stories. And I wish that I could teach the next generation of storytellers that start right here in our Bronx public schools.
Well, you're doing it. What inspired you to start mentoring upcoming book authors?
Well, the fact that when I saw the data shows that, and I'm gonna say some really, it could be triggering for some, but it's the truth. It's very alarming. 6% of accepted manuscripts come from Latino communities.
Uh huh.
And I believe for African American community is not even a full 10%. So for Latinos is different. And I'm just going to talk about being Latino a little differently, because there's 22 countries that make up the Latino communities. We're talking about Mexico, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
I even throw Haiti in there because I don't care what people say. Haiti is very Latino as well
Yeah.
in many communities. But that means 1% out of that 6% makes up one community if you think about it. So if we're only accepting 6% of manuscripts to cover all of Latino America, all of Dominicans, Puerto Rican, Cubans, Mexicans, New Guinea, like the list goes on.
Yeah.
Imagine how many don't have an opportunity to tell their authentic stories. So once I knew that data, I noticed in media, the numbers are even lower.
Yeah.
It's not a coincidence that Encanto was such a big hit, but it was one of its first of its kind where we were showing Colombian culture. You know, it's not a secret that Coco was a big hit, you know? So I started writing, how about my story? How about the story that is mixed? The story that happens to be Latino and African American. I mean, it's coming. I think the more we make individuals aware about the need of telling our stories from our authentic voices, we can make a big difference. And I want children to know that their stories matter. And they could start as simple as just telling their parents how their day was, writing it down, putting some pictures on it. That's how my kids started storytelling.
Yeah. It's like a big mix of things that have come together, and you're bringing it to light. It's like a nice bowl of sancocho.
Ocho, exacto. Pásame el aguacate y estamos completos.
There you go. And you even included the podcast. Tell us about that.
The podcast, oh my God. So I wish I could be like you, Dr. Lee. It's so hard doing a podcast. My hats are off to people. I'm happy that I've seen a lot of trailblazers in the podcaster world, including Latino podcasters, show Latino individuals, and not only Latino individuals, African American individuals, a lot of marginalized communities, that we are the leading voice in this world. So we can share our stories and we can inspire others. So when I was doing podcasting, I wanted to share the individuals, so like interesting folks that I was meeting through my authorship. And I wanted everyone to have access to that. They were supposed to leave a little bit about themselves that people didn't know when they think about these careers. Like, what are some of the challenges? Some of the things you wish you knew before you jump into it. All the way from illustrators, designers, authors like myself, documentarians, and even librarians. Like, as something as simple as a librarian. I wish, like, everyday people understand that some of us, even authors and documentarians, we got a lot of our inspirations from librarians.
Yeah. Listen, thank you for coming on and sharing all of this wonderful bowl of sancocho with us. So you got to come back and share more, okay? You can use a piece of this for your podcast, but give us some information as where we can find more about what you're doing. Social media, website.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram, Luz Mack Official. You can find me on Facebook, Luz Mack Official, as well as my website, luzmack.com. What I'm working on now is some other stories, and just be ready. It's going to be having what makes me me, and how I can speak to my authentic voice, and that is the blend of Dominican culture and African American culture, and ready for laughs and family togetherness.
We love you. Thank you for joining us. Luz M. Mack, latest book, The Secret of the Plátano. And the next one is going to come out. It's going to be called Sancocho.
That's my goal. That's my goal.
We'll take a break. There you go. We'll take a break. I've got more coming up next, right here on Open.